Here we go!
Welcome back to the Nintendo Power Zone. If you guys are just joining us, I am your host, Nice One, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jaden Winsong and Blues. And now it's time to get into our discussion, and we have a loaded question to start with. The question is, did Ubisoft save Star Fox from Nintendo? Like I said, really loaded question, but I want to set some ground rules. We are not here to determine whether StarLink itself is a good game. We're here to determine the Star Fox content within StarLink. Did Ubisoft utilize Star Fox and his team better in this game than Nintendo did in a game like Star Fox Zero? I don't want to go ahead and give my opinions right off the bat. I want to go ahead and open the floor. So who has any thoughts? Let's go ahead and jump right in.
So I kind of wanted to talk about what Nintendo's been doing wrong with Star Fox first, but to just simply, we can talk about it later, but to simply answer your questions, I think Ubisoft obviously did a great job making things, true to character for Star Fox. It really does seem like they would be in these scenarios. They meld very seamlessly. In terms of a game, StarLink as a game is just a natural element for Star Fox. The dog fighting, the planetary travel, and even some of the interplanetary travel is just a natural fit. And so they just meld really well. By instinct, a intergalactic game featuring intergalactic game characters just works. In terms of a formula, the more modern open world formula is good, I think, for a game like StarLink. It's not the traditional Star Fox setting or formula we're used to. And I don't dislike it. I think it's a good fit for Star Fox. Maybe potentially look at that for future Star Fox games. As a Star Fox game, it's not traditional. It works well, and I like it.
That being said, I said this in the news segment of today's episode, is that you can clearly see the inspiration that they took from Star Fox. The way they implemented things like space combat, the dogfighting, is almost identical to a game like Star Fox 64, which, like I said in the news segment, is the best Star Fox game. Fight me. And even the ground combat when you're on a specific planet is very reminiscent of like those stages in the Star Fox games where you're playing on like when the R-Wing is hovering low to the ground, or when you're in the why can't I remember the name of the tank?
Oh, the Landmaster.
The Landmaster. Yes.
Come on, guys.
Yes. So like, fail. I'm so sorry. I gotta
Star Fox 64. You don't even know the name of the Landmaster. Come on.
It's been a while. Yes, I had it in my head earlier, and then it slipped me. But yes, it's very reminiscent to gameplay, like when you're in the hover mode in the R-Wing, or when you're in the Landmaster. When you're dogfighting, the input commands are near identical, with the exception of doing a barrel roll. For some reason, instead of using the left and right triggers,
double tap A,
and a directional input.
Yeah,
but doing the quick turn, the loop to loop turn, that's identical. And you can just see the inspiration that they took from Star Fox game, and it doesn't just apply to Star Fox or Fox McCloud himself. Every character pilots identically. You have some advantages to choosing other characters. Like some characters are faster, their ships are more maneuverable, some are slower, but they have better firepower, etc., etc. But you do see that they implemented a lot of game design from Star Fox and applied it with other genres that are more suited to open world games. But you see the design influences that they took. So it's a weird thing.
I almost wonder if it's not design influences, but this is just the standard, that if you're going to do that loop-to-loop turn, given the setting, that's just how it should be done. I think Star Fox just discovered that that's how it should be done ahead of a lot of others, and so we relate that back to Star Fox thought of it first, but I think that's just naturally how we should make game control schemes in this kind of setting.
Yeah, and that goes for games that are not just Star Fox. I mean, I do not think that there's any coincidence that we see like 3D platforming games, for example, return to ideas that were pushed by, Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie. I think, that era really set a lot of ground foundations and standards that we're seeing pop up again today.
No, it's that's kind of the reason why I chose this topic. On top of the fact that I was highly anticipating StarLink on the Nintendo Switch because of the Star Fox thing, I was looking at the Star Fox games that have come out. And there have been far fewer Star Fox games than most of the other popular Nintendo IP, which goes which that says a lot because the Star Fox brand maintains its popularity despite the fact that it's one of the underutilized franchises that Nintendo has. If I'm looking at core releases for Star Fox, we have Star Fox 64, Star Fox Adventure, Star Fox Assault, Star Fox Command, Star Fox Zero, and the recently released Star Fox 2, but we all know the story about Star Fox 2 getting canceled after it was complete. Like, that game has only seen the light of day because of the Nintendo, the SNES Classic Edition, the Super NES Classic Edition. Like, the only reason we've seen that is because Nintendo wanted a big selling point for that particular console. It's the one thing that they had that they can't do on any other classic systems that they can release. There are no 100% completed games like that on the NES or the 64.
I wonder if it has to do with the era that we're in. Like, the thought occurred to me that we saw the most growth and the most games of Star Fox during the GameCube era. And when we look at that era, it was still an era where like anthropomorphic animal mascots were still a thing, right? But then when we move forward into like the 360 PS3 era, and even so now I think still has that, but it was very kind of the hyper realistic, everyone's got to be human, shooting Call of Duty guns at each other kind of zeitgeist of that particular era. And so part of me wonders if that's one of the reasons why we just didn't see a Star Fox was, mascot characters just weren't really a thing.
True, but on the flip side, within that same like era, we saw Nintendo franchises redefine themselves with new genres. Look at Metroid. It went from a platformer to a first person shooter. Donkey Kong went from a sort of puzzle-based platformer to a traditional side-scrolling platformer. That really ups the difficulty. But we also see Donkey Kong expand into rhythm-based games and motion-based games. Like, we've seen Nintendo like redefine these characters.
Star Fox got the Zelda treatment though.
Yeah. And I think it's easier for like Donkey Kong to go into Congo Bongo rhythm style of games because he's an ape. I can't, like, for example, I cannot imagine a game with Fox McCloud and crew doing like Dance Dance Revolution crap, for example.
It has to do with a base malleability, I think. So with Mario,
true. But if you look, what was the recent rumor of that happened earlier this year? Was that
it was Diddy Kong Racing, Star Fox
Racing? Like, Star Fox might not be as malleable as Donkey Kong and Mario and Zelda, but there are other genres that are suited to redefine the character. Now, if that's because Nintendo doesn't want to compete with their own IP, such as F-Zero and Mario Kart, that's a shame.
Well, because I do with F-Zero. Come on.
Well, but still, I mean, like there is a space racer that Nintendo does, own legitimately. That is their own IP. Like, there are avenues that they could take Star Fox. Now, ultimately,
could we see the F-Zero James McCloud in Star Fox Racing?
I would actually kind of like to see that.
That'd be cool.
He does take a lot of design cues from Fox McCloud's father. But no, I want to get back on track. So in 2015, we saw the release of Star Fox Zero. Star Fox Zero was kind of panned before it even came out. Like the graphics were unimpressive, and the motion controls were an impedance to the overall gameplay. It was too gimmicky with like the transforming of the R-Wing into the Chicken Walker, as they so dubbed it on the internet. The gimmick of having to use the little drones. There were a lot of things that people had to say about Star Fox, and I think it currently sits at like a 69% on Metacritic for Star Fox Zero. And I believe that's, just do a little internet searching. StarLink Battle for Atlas Metacritic. I should have had this up. I don't know why I forgot.
Did you see StarLink? I thought you were talking about Star Fox Zero.
Yeah, but I want to compare StarLink's Metacritic. For comparison's sake, I want to take StarLink's Metacritic and compare it to. So on Metacritic, StarLink is sitting at a 75% with an 8.0 user score, and by comparison, Star Fox Zero. Yeah, apparently. And no results found. Okay, so it came out in 2016. I was mistaken. 69% on Metacritic with an average user score of 7.4. Now, two different styles of games, but within sort of the same genre, space exploration, space fighter. We're looking at a vastly different, Metacritic
feedback
score and user score. Like we're seeing that if we're comparing just the two games based off of their scores alone, StarLink is the superior title. But again, I want to tie this into the Star Fox content itself. What do you guys grade the Star Fox content within StarLink Battle for Atlas? Just the Star Fox content. It's
like out of a 1 through 10 or something?
We'll go on a 1 through 5 scale. Let's
1 through 5? Ooh, 3.5 to 4.
I give it a 3.7. It's in that same range. The character models look great.
Mm-hmm.
The combat looks great. The gameplay, all that stuff feels great. Even the voice acting is really great. Where Starlink falters with the Star Fox content is that I think is the overall length and the story. Now, it's great that the story works in conjunction with the main storyline. And I think that's where the issue lies, is that the Starlink stuff is so well integrated into the Star Fox stuff that they are one and the same. So while you're doing a Star Fox mission, it is not uncommon for Star Fox to interact with characters like Mason and Carl and all the other people that are within the Starlink universe. There's a lot of character action between them. You can tell that both of these teams are combining their resources in order to help one another. But that's the hindrance there, is that stuff actually affects the well-being of the Star Fox content alone. But outside of that, the Star Fox story itself, it's actually pretty good. Like, they're after Star Wolf, who's using the technology that's presented in Starlink to basically conquer the universe. That's like his ultimate goal. It's interesting to see Star Wolf function autonomously, because up until this point, we've only seen him working with Andros in the franchise.
Yeah, he's a mercenary, so he's for hire.
Exactly. So to see him
wants to dominate the universe for himself.
Exactly. to see him working solely for himself, I think that's the interesting thing about the game, is to see the motivations that Wolf has is all very, very cool. Like, I'm tired of work. He's like, Andros is gone and nobody's hiring me. I need to do everything for myself. And he takes some initiative. Like, he takes a lot of initiative, and that makes his storyline pretty awesome.
I do have to say, it is a bit weird that, to me, that the studio outside of Nintendo has been able to flesh out Star Wolf better than Nintendo has in the past, I don't know, God knows how long. It's kind of sad in a weird way.
Well, I think that happens with Star Fox 2. I think they fleshed out Star Fox in a way that it's like, it's not just about protecting Corneria. Star Fox, or Fox McCloud, is a much more valiant character in this game, like he's willing to put himself on the line
Mhm.
for perfect strangers in this game, and we see his character development in that sense where most of the time he's following orders. That's it.
Mhm.
He's following orders, and in this game he's pretty much
He's
he's
calling
on
the
the
shots on his own will.
exactly yeah.
Yeah.
He pretty much interjects himself against the wishes of his team. Like Pepe has no desire to join
To help
this-
Starlink. Yeah.
Yeah, Pepe's just tired of his shit at this point.
He makes the point. He's like, I should have retired the last time we were on Corneria. Like,
Yeah.
and of course, and I love that too because you see that like Pepe is like it's always been
He's
established
old.
that he's old, but this is the first time like where like his age is like really reflected. He's like, I'm too old for this.
Which is something that they've had trouble with in the past because of the character models, you know. But I think this is one of the first instances where you can get past the character models and actually see it in his dialogue and the way the lines are delivered and just generally the way they make him. He feels older than the rest of the crew, which I think is
even in his character design. I feel like
His character design makes him look old too.
With
Agreed.
the way his fur
whiskers.
looks like a gray beard this time
Yeah.
out, instead of like the typical. Because most of the time it's more brownish. So
Yeah.
especially in the older games where textures weren't that great, like when everybody was just a smooth surface. Pepe just looked like he fit in with the rest of them. But this time he actually looks like he's got age and wisdom, and he's just tired. He's tired, and the utilization of these characters is great. And Star Fox Zero, I don't hate Star Fox Zero. Like, so I posted today's episode on a Facebook chat, and a lot of people made the assumption that I hated Star Fox Zero and that I hated the direction Nintendo has been taking, the franchise. That is not true. I think Star Fox Zero is a perfectly playable game. By no means, however, is it the best Star Fox game. It actually is one of the worst Star Fox games. To the point where Star Fox 2, which is a game that never should have seen the light of day, is better than Star Fox Zero. And we look at the influences of Star Fox 2 on Star Fox Zero, like the Chicken Walker and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of Star Fox 2 and Star Fox Zero, but Star Fox 2 is the superior game running on vastly inferior hardware. It boils down to Nintendo just doesn't know where to take this character anymore, in my opinion. They don't know how to revitalize this character the way that they have revitalized Donkey Kong, Metroid, Mario, Kid Icarus. Like, they don't know where to take the franchise. And I think Ubisoft saw an opening, they saw a window, and they said, Star Fox could work in this capacity. Something that pays homage to what you guys have done in the past, but something that could bring the character into a more modern contemporary. And they put Star Fox in an open universe, one where space exploration can take on many forms. He could actually be in space and have, these random dogfights with outlaws, or he could be very mission objective, like he is when he's on one of these 7 planets available that you can play on within the main game. Now, granted, like, the problem with StarLink in this sense is that StarLink is very uniform. Like, there are the designs you see on one planet carried over to the other 6. So you will see the same kind of design structures. The layouts of these structures are 100% identical. Now, I think that the reason for that is because the game itself is vast. The space is very big. The planets themselves are actually fairly big as well. And there are 7 of them. There's a few of them that are smaller than others, but for the most part, the planets themselves are big. It can take hours to 100% one planet. Trust me, it took me 5 hours to 100% Violet.
One thing that I want to actually bounce off of what you're saying here is the one thing I think that Star Fox does just so much better than StarLink is to provide interesting locations. Interesting locations. Like there's no Corneria in StarLink, and having just at least one Corneria or something would be nice. But to provide more locations, more landmarks, hubs of some kind would be nice. I think there's not enough of those. There's a couple like mining outposts here and there, research squadrons here and there, but there's nothing noteworthy per se.
I think it would have been interesting for them to implement some more villains as well from the Star Fox franchise, like the pig and the monkey. Can't remember. Crystal, even. I'll take Crystal. Like, there are characters that I feel like probably would have fit in really well, considering where the storyline is going with these characters, specifically the Wolf O'Donnell stuff. You think that they would implement members of his crew better?
Yeah.
But you're right. You're right. It would have been nice to have seen some more like landmarks. Hell, even show where Corneria is based in the StarLink map itself. Like, how far is Corneria from Atlas? Like, how did the Star Fox team actually physically get into Atlas? It seems that they've been traveling for a while on the hunt for Wolf, but like, you know, the way that the StarLink crew has to do it is through utilizing, you know, some sort of like mix of like teleportation hyperdrive just to get into Atlas themselves. Like, how did the Star Fox team come into that sort of technology that they could also make a journey of that, you know, scope? So yeah, I think that what Ubisoft did with Star Fox was really well implemented. But could it work as a standalone? Could they themselves take the lessons that they've learned from StarLink and apply them into a direct Star Fox game?
I don't want to see a Star Fox game that's sort of one-to-one with StarLink, though. I think, I don't know. I don't want Star Fox to be another StarLink. I want another StarLink at Battle of Atlas at that point, you know? So my thinking would be, you know, you could take some lessons and inspiration, take some feedback from what you've done with it, but I don't want to see maybe the open world again. Maybe I don't want to see the open world, but I don't know. I don't want to see the exact same game again. Does that make sense?
I know what you're talking about.
One thing that I think might differentiate well is you know, my favorite part about any of the Star Foxes that I like is the multiplayer. Star Fox has great multiplayer when it's good,
especially the 64 version.
64 and Assault had some of the best. One thing I think I talked about when we were talking about that Star Fox racing game is the potential for multiplayer with that. Like I said, that would be one of my favorite multiplayer experiences, hands down. Just looking at what we have from Diddy Kong Racing, existing Mario Kart, the world for multiplayer races in that just blows my mind. But looking at sort of maybe a more multiplayer aspect from what we have based off of StarLink, there's a 2-player co-op. I actually have not had the chance to try it out, but I would imagine that it's the same as what we currently have. But how I might actually like to see a multiplayer Star Fox be is you pick, you know, I'll be Fox, Jaden, you'll be Slippy, Nice One, you'll be Falco, and then we got Peppy's gonna be a AI computer or something, I don't know exactly. But we would all sort of pick it, and we would work as a team to just play co-op, and then obviously have a more traditional multiplayer versus mode as well. But I would like to see a bit more done with multiplayer. I think could be good. I think maybe make it more mission-based in that traditional Star Fox is linear arcade shooter, even though it's a rail open. Yeah, it's a rail shooter. That's the word. Thank you. And while maybe don't make the Ubisoft Star Fox, let's call it, completely linear on rails, but have some more linearness with the mission objectives, I guess. I don't know.
I kind of see what you're saying.
I would like to see them maintain the open world of it all.
Yeah.
Because the traditional Star Fox games, if we go back and look at like Star Fox, Star Fox 2, Star Fox 64, like you have like that map, that that HUD that you have the branching paths.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that is a bygone of an era that is long since passed.
I don't think branching paths should be done. No.
Yeah.
I don't mind a branching path as long as it's done more organically and you have the option to go back. With the way that basically how Starlink works, like how Starlink has that. When you look at the map of Starlink, which if you look at the Starlink map, it's actually really similar to the layout of a Star Fox map. If you actually go and look at the way the planets are scattered about, looks very much like the Star Fox branching paths up until you see Andros. Very similar, but more maintain that open world. So I could go to Tundra, which is one of the planets that you go for your Star Fox missions, but I also have the option to go to Vilas and Haven and all that. Leave those past. Let me pick which planet I go to next, which in Starlink, they kind of always tell you where to go next, even though you do have the option to explore any planet. They always give you direction.
But give you branching direction. But...
Exactly. Take the direction away from the game and allow the player to explore the universe as they see fit without that guidance. I could see that open world mixing. An open world like that would mix well with Star Fox as long as there is something that the character can do on each one of those planets.
How about something like Mario Odyssey's sort of navigation style, where you start with your basic Cap Town, and then you go to the Jurassic world, but there's sort of smaller open environments still. Maybe give a linear mission for both, and then after like 2 missions, you have a branching path, and you would go over to the other one after you complete that. I think maybe a more Odyssey style formula might be good.
True. I also want to point on this. I don't think we've discussed this yet. One point where I think Starlink completely fails is one of the things that I think Star Fox Zero's 100% succeeded in, is that's the implementation of motion controls, especially in dogfights. My last Star Fox game was Star Fox 2, but before that it was Star Fox Zero. And I have had issues since Star Fox Zero functioning without motion controls in a dogfight. I like the fact that Nintendo saw the usefulness of motion controls for that game, and I was expecting Starlink to embrace those, but the only motion controls accessible are when you are in the zoomed in mode, which makes you lose sight
of all your enemies.
You can't see where they are, and the way it zooms the ship in also makes it harder to navigate. Especially if you're having a dogfight in an asteroid belt.
Yeah.
You were screwed because you just lost your field of vision.
That was one of my biggest issues. I didn't think it was something that really Star Fox did better. It was just something that Star Fox did. Not many companies really use the motion control aiming like Nintendo. And I don't blame them. It's weird, but
it's the fact that they added motion controls, though.
In general,
And that's what I was going to go with there is I'm always in favor of things that give players more options. If you want it, then it's there. If it's not, then if you don't want it, then just turn it off. But, I am always in favor of things.
I'll agree with that. That was lame. Okay.
All things considered, it would not be the first time that Nintendo has given the reins of Star Fox to a third-party developer. The best example would be Star Fox Assault. There are 2 examples: Star Fox Assault and Star Fox Command. Assault was made by Bandai Namco. I think they did a pretty good job of fixing what Rare broke. I don't hate Dinosaur Planet, but I do think that it broke Star Fox. And the way we perceive those games. The on-foot planet exploration was actually a hindrance to that franchise. On the flip side, one of my favorite Star Fox games is one that I don't think gets a lot of love, is Star Fox Command on the original DS. Star Fox Command was a phenomenal game. And it took a lot of risks. But we've seen Nintendo hand over the reins of Star Fox, and I think Ubisoft may have proven themselves to be the best hands. In my personal opinion, I think Ubisoft showed that, one, they could pay a crap ton of homage to Star Fox, and they did that by implementing traditional Star Fox controls into StarLink as the primary control scheme. You play StarLink like you play Star Fox 64 with one major change, and that's the barrel roll. And that's pretty much it. Everything else feels Star Fox. So I do think that Ubisoft knows how to pay homage, and this isn't the first time that they've done it. Obviously, they did it with Mario+Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and now they've worked that same kind of magic with the Star Fox missions. Whether or not they could do a larger scale Star Fox story remains to be seen. I don't know if they proved that with the story of the Star Fox missions in StarLink. That's where I think it would behoove Nintendo and Ubisoft to co-develop the game. So, no, I'm going to answer the question that we posed. Ubisoft did not save Star Fox from Nintendo. What Ubisoft proved was that they need Nintendo in order to fully realize what Star Fox can be. They need the level of precision that Nintendo puts into all of its games. Like how everything is flawless for the hardware as far as visuals, and even if the story is limited, they know how to implement story properly into a game. But Ubisoft has shown that they know what direction the character needs to go in order to thrive. So, in my opinion, personally, I don't think Ubisoft saved Star Fox. I think what they did was show the potential of Star Fox again. And in 2018, it's kind of weird to be talking about Star Fox and potential, considering that the franchise has existed for going on 20 years. But it shows that the character has potential to grow even to this day.
This is where I wanted to sort of talk about what has been plaguing the Star Fox series for a while. At the beginning, I mentioned this. And it's... So we look at, Dino Planet, I guess, maybe the first one that really messed up, is it's gimmicky. That's being a Zelda game is a huge gimmick. And so it's adding things like gimmicks. It's the dying formula. Like we said before, the branching path, linear rail shooter isn't as appealing as it was in the N64 era. And so those formulas are old, they're outdated, and they haven't found a good footing on where to properly take this. In Star Fox Zero's case, it was I think the biggest issue was that it's a return to form, it's a reboot, it's a refresh, when that's not, I think it's not necessarily what they needed. And they didn't get it right even with that sort of refresh. And I think in Star Fox or StarLink Battle for Atlas's case, it's not that they maybe made a good Star Fox game, but Star Fox meshed well in StarLink. We're not playing Star Fox, and I would be hesitant to say that if Ubisoft made Star Fox or even co-developed it, that they would make it good per se. If they, because there's the problem of how do they take a full-fledged Star Fox? Do they add gimmicks to it? Would Nintendo, maybe if they co-developed it, want some kind of gimmick? It's adding the gimmicks, adding a better formula, just making the game right, I feel like is still kind of tricky. Finding that footing that they've been struggling to find. I think, like we said, the open world exploratory formula of Atlas is cool, but I've mentioned before that I don't want that per se in my Star Fox game. I want that as my StarLink game. And so I'm hesitant still. I think there's still room for error. Ubisoft, it's not like they can't do no wrong. They can still screw it up. And I think that risk increases when they're given the chance to make a full game that's Star Fox rather than mesh Star Fox into their existing IP, StarLink.
I think you're onto something there, though. Like, because the big question is, where do we take Star Fox now that we acknowledge that the format of the rail shooter is antiquated, right? And so I can give some credit to the dinosaur one, in that I'm sure they had the idea like, okay, you know what, we got to give Star Fox some change up. Let's get him out of the actual out of the ships. So how are we going to do that? What sort of game core genre mechanic do we give him? And at the time, Zelda would probably be the best fit, like, because it wouldn't be in a 3D platformer, right? That would have just been a bit more weird than Zelda. Like third person shooters were still kind of at the time, right? And first person shooters were still kind of, I don't even know if they would do that for Star Fox. And so linking this back to now, Star Fox Zero kind of showed that it kind of works. Rail shooter kind of works, but kind of doesn't. And so StarLink may be an indicator of where the kind of general direction where Star Fox kind of needs to go in order to evolve as just a general franchise, in order for it to all work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's a push in the right direction to find that formula. I think they're honestly with that more modern open world exploratory. But I don't think that's exactly how I would want to take my Star Fox. I don't think that's how Nintendo wants to take it entirely. Yeah. I still think what I want right now is that racing game. I think that's what Nintendo should do, is that Star Fox racing game, get on it, make it great, and just have it get rid of Mario Kart, have Mario fly an R-Wing game. Like, come on. Throw green shells in space. Come on. That's what I want.
Don't know. What I kind of want is a system that's partially open world, but also instances where there's some rail mechanics, and also instances where you're outside of the ship using like third person Gears of War kind of cover mechanics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like an actual shooter, a third person shooter maybe, but it's you have to get behind the wall and fire Fox's patented laser,
Yeah.
I think that would be cool too.
But the balance for that would be very difficult.
I think what you'd want to do with something like that is have a hub universe, not a hub world, but have a hub universe, and you go to the mission area. And the mission areas would either be, that linear on rails shooter, or the get out on the ship and fire to complete the mission objective on foot.
I ultimately think that Star Fox, if we're going to use like the same kind of level structure as StarLink, Star Fox would benefit from side quests, like side missions, like similar to how games like Grand Theft Auto and other open world games apply them. Like, hey, you don't need to do this, but here's something that you can do in order to flesh out the experience and raise the level of your character and just do more within the game itself.
Yeah,
I think if you apply that to a game like StarLink, which StarLink has its side quests, but the variety of them there's not a whole lot of variety. You pretty much, your side quests remain the same once you've completed the first planet. You're not seeing anything new.
I want to try and almost compare the open worlds. I know it's a very drastic comparison. Compare the open worlds between StarLink and the upcoming, comes out this week, Red Dead Redemption 2. Which Rockstar Games has got open world games down to a science at this point. And one of the best things by far about Red Dead Redemption is all those side quests. They're so varied, they're so fun, there's a lot of personality in them. And I'd like to see that is how they handle side quests, and maybe look at how StarLink could put those side quest formulas into what they're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, I said it earlier. Ubisoft did not save Star Fox. Star Fox can learn from StarLink, and I hope they do. I hope that Nintendo doesn't see the critical failure of Star Fox Zero and chooses to hold off on another installment in Star Fox. The character is beloved by its fan base.
And Melee fans.
It's one of the most
of course.
the Star Fox fan base may be the most loyal fan base Nintendo has, because we have sat through some bad games. And I know that we don't typically, Nintendo doesn't make bad games, but the Star Fox franchise seems to exist in its own realm. Somebody once made a joke to me that Star Fox is like the redheaded stepchild of the Nintendo IP.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I love Star Fox, and I hope Nintendo really just learns that the character can be utilized in more ways than the ways that they themselves have tried.
Oh, actually, since we've talked about sort of handing the Star Fox IP off before, as well as other things like we've talked about handing IP off, like Metroid and Donkey Kong off to Retro Studios. One person or team or whatever that does a really good job at handing off franchises and establishing them, Masahiro Sakurai. Kid Icarus Uprising was a great direction for that game, and I would love to see what he could do. Yeah, I'd love to see what he could do with Star Fox. There's also a lot of love that he puts in for Smash with the Fox characters.
I almost want to see what Rockstar would do with them. Honestly,
yeah, that's another reason why I kind of wanted to look at Red Dead Redemption 2. But
like when you mentioned Red Dead Redemption 2, all of a sudden the thought occurred to me, like, how interesting would it be to see a mature rated Star Fox game with like hub worlds on Corneria where you can get out and beat hookers or something. But I wouldn't actually want to see Fox beat hookers. But you know what I'm saying? Like, like dark content like that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Like Wolf eating something's arm, right?
Yeah.
But, one thing that actually interests me more is how Rockstar would handle a intergalactic setting. We've seen them handle Old West, the sort of mafia noir eras, and the obviously modern city eras. But I don't think they've done a intergalactic space setting before, and I think that could be interesting.
Huh? Yeah, that'd be interesting.
With all the homage that Star Fox pays to Star Wars, it would have been interesting to see LucasArts try their hand at a Star Fox game when they were still developing their own games.
Yeah,
that would have been interesting at that point in time. Obviously, we know that LucasArts no longer exists in the capacity that they did then, but it would have been interesting because a Knights of the Old Republic style Star Fox game could be incredible.
I think that would be cool too. Yeah, I think you could do a lot with what you were saying with the on-ground stuff too. Would be nice, Old Republic format.
Yeah, that's the problem with like Star Fox Adventures is that
the format.
The way the game was built, it was never intended to be a Star Fox game. Miyamoto just kind of came and said, "Hey, that female fox looks like a Star Fox character. Why don't you just make this a Star Fox game?" And that style of development may work for Nintendo of Japan, but it clearly did not work for Rare. Did not work for Rare, and I think Rare almost completely tanked the Star Fox franchise. And this is when Rare was making amazing games. This is like that era where we still considered Rare to be a top tier AAA developer, and since that game, they have not been that. They have been the opposite of that. They basically made kiddie games for Xbox. I'm talking about you, Viva Pinata.
Well, weren't they the ones behind Sea of Thieves, that new pirate game?
Maybe
that's not Rare anymore.
It's not Rare at all.
Rare is Yooka-Laylee.
No, you're right.
That's Rare.
That's right.
Played all the people that
it's
work
the
with
name
Playtime
brand though. Yeah, not the same guys. You're right.
But I have nothing left to say on the topic. I think we pretty much covered what Ubisoft has done for the franchise and whether or not they saved Star Fox. And I think we've made some good points as to where the franchise could go if it was to go outside of Ubisoft's hands and Nintendo's hands entirely. So I think I like this topic. I've been wanting to talk about Star Fox on this show since day one, but I could never figure out the capacity in which we could speak on the franchise. And I honestly think that because StarLink now exists, and the best version of StarLink arguably would be the Switch version from at least a story aspect where you get more content out of it. I think this is finally the chance this was the chance I've been waiting for to talk about Star Fox on the show. I've always loved this character and I've loved these games, but it's been a hard road to love these games. Like, this is like a broken relationship that you keep trying to make work, and it doesn't necessarily work, but then there's that spark that keeps you with that person, and that's what StarLink did for me. StarLink reminded me of the reason why I loved it. So
yeah,
I'm really glad I finally got a chance to talk Star Fox on this show. Will probably be another, this is year 3 of the podcast, so it'll probably be another 3 years before I get the chance to talk about Star Fox in any capacity.
I mean, maybe if Retro reveals what they're doing soon, and it happens to be that Star Fox game, and it's coming holiday 2019. You never know.
I don't even know if I want a racing game out of Star Fox. Still,
I mean,
I'm intrigued by the
idea. It's a racing game. I love it. It's not what I want from Star Fox, but I want a racing game like that. Yeah.
I'm more concerned with a Mario Kart 9 than a Star Fox Battle Racers or whatever they would call it.
I would want Super Mario Kart Maker. Super Mario Kart Maker is what I want from 9.
That'd be kind of sick. Yeah,
that's all I want.
They tried that with F-Zero for the GameCube. I don't think that worked too well.
Well, no, but things like Mod Nation Racers, Track Mania, Little Big Planet Kart Racing, those are solid course makers.
Yeah.
I forgot about Little Big Planet Racer.
Mm-hmm. I think they could do it if they tried it again. So,
All right. So, guys, we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap this show up. But before we let you go, we got to hit you up with these social media links. So, you can hit me up on Twitter at nice1983. You can email me at nice1983@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/the Nintendo Zone. If you're a fan of this podcast, you can download new episodes on iTunes, Google Play Music, stream new episodes on Stitcher Radio. But if you want to watch the show live like you're doing right now, you can catch us right here on YouTube, youtube.com/Nintendo Zone. Guys, hit them up.
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, as usual, you can hit me up at Jaden Winsong on Twitch, Twitter. Yeah, those are pretty much the other ones. And YouTube. And that's Twitter's the best one to get me at, though. So,
all right, you can follow me on Twitter at VKingBlues. That's the same for YouTube and Twitch as well. Blues, as always, spelled BLOOZ. VKingBlues.
All right, so guys, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, stay fresh.
Here we go!